Chocolate cake. The most popular cake in America wasn't always chocolate. Before 1764, chocolate was primarily a drink, and the processing methods didn't exist to create baking chocolate. Konrad von Houten invented Dutch processed cocoa in 1828, which finally made modern chocolate cake possible. For thousands of years, chocolate cake couldn't exist because the chemistry wasn't there yet. The magic happens when baking soda reacts with cocoa's natural acidity, creating rise and that deep dark color. Cocoa powder versus melted chocolate creates entirely different textures, which is why devil's food, German chocolate, and regular chocolate cake are completely different recipes. Today, chocolate cake is requested for 60% of American birthday celebrations, dominating every other flavor combined. Red velvet cake. The red color wasn't always from food dye. It was a chemical accident. During the Depression era, red velvet emerged with the Waldorf Astoria claiming invention, though that's disputed. Originally, the cake was barely reddish, from cocoa's natural anthocyanin reacting with acidic buttermilk and vinegar. The signature red color started as a subtle chemical reaction that most people never noticed. Then, Adams Extract Company possibly popularized it as a marketing scheme to sell red food coloring in the 1930s and 40s. Modern versions use tablespoons of red dye to achieve that bright red color. The original bakers wouldn't recognize today's versions. Red velvet is especially important in Southern culinary tradition and African American baking culture. The cream cheese frosting everyone associates with it only became standard in the 1950s, and today's versions are essentially chocolate cakes dyed red. Carrot cake. Vegetables and dessert started as medieval poverty food. In medieval Europe, people used carrots as sweeteners when sugar was scarce and expensive. World War II rationing brought carrot cake roaring back when Britain's Ministry of Food promoted it as patriotic pudding. Carrots provide moisture and natural sweetness, reducing the need for fat and sugar during wartime shortages. The spices are what make it actually taste good. To be authentic, carrot cake must contain cinnamon, nutmeg, and ginger. Without those spices, you're just making sweet vegetable bread. The cream cheese frosting everyone associates with carrot cake only became standard in 1960s and 70s America. Before that, it was often served plain or with simple glaze. It went from wartime ration substitute to upscale cafe staple charging $8 a slice. Pound cake, named after the recipe, which originally called for 1 pound each of 4 ingredients. It emerged in 1700s Europe with a simple formula: 1 pound of butter, sugar, eggs, and flour. That's it. No complex measurements. No confusion. Traditional versions use no baking powder at all. The rise comes entirely from air beaten into the butter, which requires serious arm strength and technique. Southern American bakers later added flavor variations like lemon, almond, and cream cheese to make it more interesting. The high fat content means it lasts about a week without going stale, making it practical for families. Modern recipes have been reduced to half the original portions because the original formula made absolutely massive cakes that could feed dozens of people. Pound cake has the simplest ingredient list, but the most unforgiving technique. Tres leches cake. Soaked with 3 different milks until it's barely holding together. The origins are fiercely disputed, with Mexico, Nicaragua, and Cuba all claiming they invented it first. But here's the conspiracy theory. It may have been popularized by Nestlé's marketing campaigns in the 1940s and 50s to sell more condensed and evaporated milk. The 3 milks are evaporated milk, condensed milk, and heavy cream or whole milk, poured over sponge cake that somehow holds all that liquid without falling apart. It defies physics. The cake must be refrigerated and served cold with whipped cream on top. Americans trying it for the first time are often shocked by the intentionally soggy texture, which goes against everything they know about cake. Each Latin American country insists their version is the original, and the origin story may be corporate marketing disguised as cultural tradition. Chiffon cake. The recipe was a guarded secret for 20 years before being sold to a cake mix company. Harry Baker created it in 1927 in Los Angeles, and Hollywood's famous Brown Derby restaurant used it exclusively. The secret ingredient was vegetable oil instead of butter, which was absolutely revolutionary at the time. Nobody had tried that before. Baker finally sold the recipe to General Mills in 1947 for an undisclosed sum, and they published it everywhere. The technique combines foam cake methods like angel food with the richness of oil. The texture is lighter than butter cakes, but richer than angel food, creating something completely unique. Hollywood's elite ate it for 2 decades without knowing what made it so special. Chiffon cake became massively popular in Japan, Taiwan, and Southeast Asia, where it's still trendy today, but it's considered old-fashioned in America. Funfetti cake, invented by Pillsbury in 1989, and trademarked, so you can't legally call it Funfetti unless it's theirs. A Pillsbury food scientist created it to compete with Duncan Hines, and the name Funfetti is protected intellectual property. Competitors have to say confetti cake or sprinkle cake instead. The real innovation wasn't just adding sprinkles to cake batter. It was engineering tiny candy bits with special coatings that wouldn't bleed color during baking or melt in oven heat. That required actual food science research and development. Funfetti became the symbol of 1990s childhood and the essential birthday party cake. Then, something weird happened. Millennial nostalgia brought it back in the 2000s as somehow artisanal. Small, trendy bakeries started reverse engineering the boxed mix to recreate what they called authentic Funfetti, charging $8 a slice for what started as a 99-cent box mix. Pineapple upside-down cake. The cast iron skillet cake that became a national obsession during the Great Depression. Romans made upside-down cakes with honey, but the American version exploded in the 1920s when canned pineapple became affordable for average families. Dole and other pineapple companies heavily promoted recipes using their canned product in women's magazines, running features constantly from the 1930s through 1960s. The technique requires butter and brown sugar caramelized in a heavy pan, fruit arranged in patterns, cake batter poured on top, then the whole thing flipped after baking. Cast iron holds heat evenly for proper caramelization. During the Depression, canned pineapple represented exotic luxury that was actually affordable, making this an aspirational dessert. Maraschino cherries became the standard decoration in the 1940s and 50s. Corporate marketing turned tropical fruit into a Midwest obsession during America's poorest decade.